This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Ritual and Shelter. Looking for a magical place to shop and hold space? Check out Ritual and Shelter in Homewood, Alabama. Browse through their bookshelves covering topics of magical history, theory, and practice, as well as tarot cards and oracle decks from well-known artists, and even decks created by local witches in Alabama. From teas, tonics, and tinctures to toad skulls and tourmaline towers, you can find all of these and so much more on their witchy website, ritualshelter.com, or in person. So lather up that flying ointment and travel down to Ritual and Shelter in Homewood, Alabama, or check them out online at ritualshelter.com. Did you run out of flying ointment? Well, they have that too. This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you in part by Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab is a fragrance house specializing in body and household blends with a dark, romantic, gothic tone. Over the years, they've collaborated with some of my very favorite creative visionaries, including Neil Gaiman, Jim Jarmusch, the Jim Henson Company, and most recently, Junji Ito. They continually return to inspirations drawn from witchcraft, paganism, and mythology, and they also have a sister store called Twilight Alchemy Lab, which creates oils blended and consecrated specifically for ritual use. The lab recently released their annual Halloween perfume collection, a limited edition series which includes scents inspired by folklore accounts of lycanthropy. Customer reviews of their products can be found at the fan-run bpal.org web forum, and you can check out all of their perfumes and other enchanting concoctions over at blackphoenixalchemylab.com. Hi, Witch Wavers. I have exciting news. At long last, we have some new Witch Wave merch available for you now through TeePublic. We decided to go with TeePublic for our new Witch Wave merch because it is a print-on-demand site, which means you can get different variations of the Witch Wave logo printed on t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, magnets, notebooks. Oh my gods, the sky's the limit. And the shirts come in different styles and fabrics and colors and are available in sizes small through 5XL, so you can order whatever you'll feel you're most magical in. So head on over to witchwavepodcast.com/shop.
The world is filled with bewitching people, and you might be one too. Welcome to the podcast where art is magic is real, and reality is stranger than dreams. I'm Pam Grossman, and this is The Witch Wave.
Hello, and welcome to The Witch Wave. My friends, it is the season finale, and we are closing season 7 out with a bang. Because on today's episode, I speak with Suranne Jones, the BAFTA-winning actor who has starred in everything from Dr. Foster to Gentleman Jack to Vigil and so much in between and so much more to come. Now, Suranne is also a producer, and she chose the witch trials and the modern witchcraft movement as the focus of her first docuseries, which she is also the host of. And I had the honor of being in the docuseries. We filmed our segment together in Salem, And it was one of those rare experiences where someone I've admired from afar is even lovelier in person. And believe me, that does not happen all the time. But I am so thrilled that it did in this case, and I am doubly thrilled that she agreed to come on the show to talk with me all about her interest in witches and witch history. Now, before we get into the episode, there are just a couple bits of news that I want to share with you. If you're listening to this on the day that it drops, which is Wednesday, June 26th, tonight, I'm leading the Witchwave Patreon Coven in an online ritual for Cancer season. The theme is True Lunacy, and we'll be discussing moon magic, intuition, and lunar goddesses. So you can join us live at 8 p.m. New York time, or else you can watch the recording later, which will be made available for all Witchwave Patreon backers until the next month's circle, so it's not too late to join. On a related note, so yes, after this episode, the Witchwave will be on summer break. We'll be coming back in the fall for season 8. I can't believe we're up to 8. However, do not fear, you will not have to go through Witchwave withdrawal. I will still be putting out some mini-sodes and bonus interviews and such throughout the summer via Witchwave Plus, which all of our Patreon backers have access to. And so if you haven't joined us already, do consider joining us so you can get your steady stream of Witchwave Plus content this summer. Join us over at patreon.com/witchwave for access to all of that bonus content, as well as to my monthly rituals, which I will also still be doing throughout the summer. And there's a whole archive of ad-free Witchwave episodes and lots of bonus episodes, all with detailed show notes. It's a minimum of $5 a month to join, and that gets you access to all of that. Higher tiers get access to even more goodies like merch and contests and even one-on-one occult consultancies. I call them occult office hours with yours truly. So yes, please do join us over on Patreon. Lastly, in July, I'm going to be teaching a solo online workshop. And this one is an old fave, which I haven't done in a really long time. And that is my Witch Pictures ultra illustrated presentation, which delves into witch art and iconography throughout the ages and tracks how the witch went from a maligned villain to a symbol of feminine power and valor. This is by far my most popular talk, and it's one that I've given to universities and various institutions and to different creative corporations and production houses at times. But if you have seen some version of this in the past, it will be updated since the last time I gave it. So it's really fun to revisit it or to see it for the first time if you haven't already. This is my OG Big Daddy, or I should say Big Mama presentation all about witches. And it's just a super fun visual history and filled to the brim with ghoulish and gorgeous witch pictures. And look, I will be recording it for all registrants, so anyone who registers for this talk will have access to the recording for 30 days, but I will not be putting the recording online indefinitely for the general public as I do with my other workshops. So this is your chance to see it or to re-see it to get a ravishing refresher if you would like to. I don't know when I'm going to give this talk again to the public, so do sign up if you are intrigued. Tickets are available now at pamgrossman.com/events or over at the link in my @Phantasmaphile Instagram bio. And that exact date is Wednesday, July 17th. It'll be at 8 p.m. New York time. But again, it will be recorded for anybody who registers. So if you can't make it live, don't worry, register, and you'll be emailed a link to the recording within 24 hours after I give it. Okay, so getting back to Suranne Jones's excellent docuseries. It is called Suranne Jones Investigating Witch Trials. And in it, Suranne goes throughout Europe and then she comes to the United States to learn about the history of the witch trials and also to delve into the empowering and complicated rise of the modern witchcraft movement. The first episode aired in the UK on Channel 4 this past Sunday, and the second episode, which I'm in, is about to air on Channel 4 this coming Sunday at 9 p.m. UK time. That's June 30th. Though I understand that both episodes will be streaming via the Channel 4 site. Now, before you ask, I don't know if or when it will be available in the States and elsewhere. So if you're not in the UK, I would, of course, never suggest that you do some VPN magic to circumnavigate your web location so that you can access it. Heaven forfend! Now, I was lucky enough to get to watch the series already, and I can tell you, hand on heart, that it is so well done. And I say this as someone who has been part of a number of such projects and who has been asked to be part of many more. And what can I say? I'm very selective and very protective about this subject matter and about what I choose to get involved with. And I know that a lot of filmmakers go in thinking that they're going to tell this straightforward story about witches and women, and then they very quickly learn as they get into this subject matter that it is not a straightforward story at all. And the good filmmakers press on anyway, and they roll up their sleeves and get into the nuance and contradiction of this topic with care and intellect and thoughtfulness. And that is exactly what Suranne and her team have done. And I'm very grateful. I'm so thrilled that I am part of it. And I just think it's a wonderful watch. So again, do watch it if and when you are able to. And look, this topic is more relevant than ever. Not only because of the rise in interest in paganism and witchcraft and other alternative approaches to spirituality, but also because politically right now, we're seeing a rise in a lot of the destructive forces who are seeking to gain power by oppressing marginalized people and scapegoating them, whether that be women, queer people, BIPOC people, immigrants, or anyone who isn't a straight, white, religious nationalist, right? And right now here in the States, we're seeing abortion bans and book bans, drag bans, bans against transgender care. And just last week, a law was passed in Louisiana requiring all classrooms to post a copy of the 10 Commandments, which is considered a win for those who believe that Christian nationalism should be the law of the land. Never mind the fact that the 10 Commandments are from the Old Testament, but the intention still stands. There are people in our governments who want to ostracize anyone who doesn't fall in line and believe what they believe. Now, presumably, this 10 Commandments suit will be retried and deemed unconstitutional, which it is. But demanding that all people follow one religious dogma is frankly a fascist idea, and ideas like these are gaining traction. And that's why it's important that we know our history and that we study other examples of marginalized people who have been oppressed, silenced, scapegoated, in some cases who have lost their lives at the hands of power-hungry ideologues and zealots, as these accused primarily women did, though some men, of course, during the height of the witch trials.
Now, in addition to knowing our history, it's also important that we strengthen ourselves now and find inspiration and beauty and community that we can draw upon so that our spirits stay steady and bright, even through this darkness. Because I, at my core, am a hopeful person. I'm a pragmatically optimistic person. I believe that justice and equality for all is possible. But we achieve that by having open eyes and steadfast hearts, and the conviction to not let things slide backwards and to not let fear win. To let love and freedom and compassion lead us into a better future. And so I'm so grateful to Suranne for her thorough and thoughtful documentary, which I found to be so inspiring and also a lot of fun in parts too. So there's lots of sugar and magic to help make this medicine go down. That is for sure. And I especially appreciate that this docuseries not only focuses on the past, but also focuses on the inspiration and the hope and the positive feminine power that the contemporary witchcraft movement has been generating for so many of us. Anyhow, I can't wait for you to hear my conversation with Suranne, both on the docuseries, but also in today's episode. It is such a treat that I got to spend so much time with her. I have so much respect for her, and I really think that you are going to love what she has to say. But before we get to that, first, let's check and see what's come through on the Witch Wire.
Who is it?
Witches.
Kate writes, I'm just getting back into dating after a 3-year hiatus, and I'm also getting more and more comfortable identifying as a witch, although my spiritual practice has been very important to me and such a big part of my life. How do you talk about this with potential partners? I'm noticing the witch wound coming up so much and fear around how I will be perceived, even though I know that I definitely want to be accepted and loved for being my authentic self. Thanks so much and love the pod. Hi, Kate. I'm so glad you love the pod. Thank you for listening. And I'm so glad that you took the time to write. So before I answer your question, I want to just define for our listeners that term you used, which is the witch wound. Now, this is a term that I've seen circulating quite a bit over the last few years, and my understanding of it is that it's describing a fear of being punished or persecuted due to being perceived as a pariah or an outsider, and that it's often women who carry this wound as a sort of epigenetic or generational trauma, so the theory goes. In other words, according to people who speak about the witch wound, there's this idea that because it was often women who were persecuted for being witches, and I always like to emphasize most of them, if not all of them, probably were not actually witches, or at least would not have considered themselves witches. But anyhow, because it was mostly women who were accused, there's this sort of cellular or spiritual remembrance of the witch hunts that affects many people, many women, many witches to this day, and keeps them afraid or silent about using their voice, sticking out, being different, and particularly afraid about sharing that they, in fact, practice witchcraft or identify as a witch in some capacity. Now, I'm not sure myself if the witch wound is something that we should take literally. I mean, if you are actually a descendant of someone who was persecuted or killed for being a witch, then yes, in that case, absolutely. I think epigenetically, you may have inherited some of that
trauma in the same way that I and many Jewish people have inherited intergenerational trauma at the epigenetic level because of the Holocaust, right? Not to mention centuries of persecution otherwise. So in that case, then, okay, maybe the witch wound is a literal thing. But my understanding is that the witch wound is a term that people are using more metaphorically or mythopoetically to describe a feeling of fear and anxiety that they might have around coming out of the broom closet and exposing their identity as a witch. And look, that's absolutely a real feeling that a lot of people share, and I don't want to minimize that in any way, especially when there are still literal witch hunts happening in certain regions around the world, like Papua New Guinea and India and various African countries and so on. And especially when we are seeing this rise in religious nationalism and fundamentalism here in America and beyond. So your feelings are absolutely valid, and many people have those feelings in our community, in the witchcraft community at times. I myself have had to navigate being a public witch while also being guarded and mindful around the fact that, look, it's vulnerable to be a woman in public at all right now, let alone one who self-identifies as a witch. The internet is a nutty place, as we know. And I'm also Jewish, and there's a rise in anti-Semitism right now, as we know. And all of these things are real. And so I think it's smart to be mindful about how we share our identities and beliefs and with whom. But all of that said, I also know that oppressors win when people stay scared and small and silent. And so I look at the history of other marginalized people, whether that's the history of LGBTQ folks or women or Palestinians or Jewish folks or Black Americans or Muslim Americans in general, particularly the vitriol that they were subjected to here in the US after 9/11. I mean, the list goes on, right, of people who are scapegoated or demonized by an oppressive, fundamentalist, usually bigoted force. And through studying them, I have learned that being who you are without apology is the only way to be truly free. Now, not everyone has to scream in the streets about who they are or have a public persona or career that is focused on their identity, but everyone deserves to have people in their personal lives who accept them and love them and know them, really know them. And any partner that you would be with needs to accept and love and know all the parts of who you truly are. So, no, I don't think you need to tell someone that you're a witch immediately if you don't feel safe enough to on, a first date or something. But I really think your intuition will guide you here, and that eventually it behooves you to disclose this. People need to earn the right to have you share this very sacred part of yourself. It's true. However, if when you do take that leap and share this part of yourself with someone, if they reject it or make fun of it or greet it with any kind of hostility or bigotry, then they are clearly not the right partner for you. The word witch is actually a wonderful litmus test, and it's also a reliable filtration system because you can explain what you mean when you use that word and why it's important to you, and you might have to with some people who aren't familiar with it. Not everyone is as aware and evolved as we are to know about the modern witchcraft movement and the positive, feminist, empowering identity of being a witch, and that's okay. But if after you explain it, this person is still turned off or uncomfortable or disrespectful, then they are simply not worthy of any more of your time.
be thoughtful about who you are sharing yourself with and when you reveal those different layers of yourself, but don't let fear make you hide who you are or pretend you're something you're not. If you find someone that you really connect with, because the right partner or partners are out there and they are going to think that your witchy side is a wonderful aspect of what makes you you. I promise. Anyhow, good luck. Keep me posted, please. I would love to hear how this all shakes out. Now, on to my guest. Suranne Jones is an English actor, producer, and series creator. She's been nominated for several awards for acting and won a BAFTA for her starring role in the hit series Dr. Foster, A Woman Scorned. Some highlights from her decades-long television career include starring roles in Gentleman Jack, Vigil, and Scott and Bailey. And she's also appeared in such British TV institutions as Coronation Street and Doctor Who. She's currently in production on a new Netflix thriller series called The Choice, which sees her starring as the British Prime Minister opposite Julie Delpy's French president. Hell yes! So look for that in 2025. Suranne also has an illustrious theater career and has starred in such plays as Frozen, Orlando, and Beautiful Thing. As producer, Suranne co-runs the Team Acres production company with her husband, and it's this company that is responsible for this new docuseries, Suranne Jones Investigating Witch Trials. The series is currently airing in 2 parts on the UK's Channel 4 on June 23rd and June 30th. And again, if you missed the first part, not to worry, as both will be streaming on the Channel 4 site. Suranne joined me from her home in London via Zoom.
Suranne Jones, welcome to the Witch Wave.
I'm so excited to see you and to just be part of your thing because you were part of mine. So thank you so much for having me.
Are you kidding me? I am so thrilled to see you again. And for listeners in the UK, you have a brand new docuseries. And by the time this airs, 1/2 of that docuseries will have aired. And the next one is coming out the following week, I understand. And this is your docuseries called Suranne Jones Investigating Witch Trials. And yes, I got to be part of this. I'm so honored that you invited me. Thank you.
It was just a pleasure. And seeing it all come together from the first little kernel, the little nugget of wanting to do it. And then now it's going to be out there. It really feels like people say, oh, this is my baby. But I really feel like this one is.
Yes, absolutely. And, obviously you've been acting for a long time. You are now producing and developing and stepping into all of these roles behind the camera as well. Is this your first docuseries that you've done, Suranne?
Yeah, I've always liked voice stuff and I've been quite picky with that. I would do stuff that interested me or challenged me in some way. And then I've been asked to do like all sorts of shit, like, do you want to do a documentary about drinking too much, or do you want to get in and swim with sharks or go to every supermarket? I'm like, no, I don't want to do any of that. Or do you want to pair up with someone and go on a road trip? And I've really thought about them. And then it was my husband, Lawrence, who said, why don't you do something on witches? Because ever since I've met you, that's the thing that I feel like you have grown. We've been together 9 years. And he said, I knew you were interested in it, but I watched you get deeper into it. So why don't you do something on that? So it was him that kind of put the treatment together and said, what about this? He encouraged me to do it. Because it's hard sometimes to put yourself out there because people have no idea what my likes are. He's just delivering me a cup of tea, actually. We're just talking about
you.
But...
Hello.
Lovely to meet you.
I won't swear.
No, don't swear. So yeah, it's hard, isn't it? To put yourself out there.
Sure. So let's talk about, when did this interest in witches and witchcraft begin for you? I understand your husband knew you had that interest, but when did it start?
I think that when I was a kid, I always wanted to act, always wanted to be someone else, embody characters, was slightly uncomfortable being who I was in my body, was brought up a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I was bullied at school. I had some issues around that,
Mm,
but always wanted to act. So the acting came really young, like 7, 8.
sure.
And my parents encouraged me to do that. And I feel like the witchcraft is tied in with the acting, the fascination with the magical and the other, because I was never drawn to princesses. I was drawn to the wild women or the misunderstood. And I feel like even in my characters with Dr. Foster and Gentleman Jack, and quite a lot of my characters actually, they have these arcs where you have to get under their skin and understand them.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's all kind of joined. And I fell out of love with my religion that I was given it through my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find something that suited me. And I feel like that's also linked to my journey on spirituality and what was opened up, because I was like, give me everything.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of my 20s just trying everything and being curious. And I think now I know, and the documentary has cemented it, being curious about the world is all part
Yes.
of it.
Yes.
And we spoke a lot about that. You made that really clear to me, actually, in the documentary.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. And I know you grew up not far from Pendle. This is where your docuseries actually begins. And I thought that was a beautiful way to root us, even geographically, in terms of your own background. So, here in the US, listeners know that the Salem witch trials are big, horrific tragedy around witchcraft. But of course, there were witch trials that were massive and happened over vast swaths of time throughout Western Europe. And certainly England was central to some of that. So, do you mind just kind of catching my listeners up to speed in terms of Pendle specifically? Because some people might not have even heard that here in the States.
I'm really pleased to introduce your listeners to Pendle. So I'm from Lancashire. This area was known as the dark corner of Britain, where people would go who were thought of as like misfits or travelers, kind of ended up in Pendle, which I didn't know actually. And then I find that out in the documentary. And Pendle Hill still has a gathering each year as well, much like Salem has very busy tourist times. Pendle has the same, with lots of witch shops and stuff. And what happened there was some trials of the Devis family, Alison Devis and Jeanette Devis, and their mother and an older woman in the family called Demdike. They were a poor family. They were outsiders. They were peddlers. And what the misconception is that they were healers. And actually, that's not quite right.
Sure.
These women were making ends meet. And within that, they were probably giving out words of wisdom. They were giving out natural remedies. They were trying to make their way. But to a community who needed to kind of concentrate on themselves, any outsiders became oddities.
Sure.
And I think that's the same story throughout the world. And then when the king came to the United Kingdom from Scotland, he was already very in fear of witches and witchcraft. And he actually wrote a book called Demonology.
That's right. And this is King James I. Some listeners might be familiar with this. And this is actually the king that Shakespeare was trying to impress when he wrote Macbeth. And that's why Shakespeare kind of goes very witchy in this time period, too.
Yes, exactly that. So he comes to England and he writes this book, Demonology. And basically, it's how to spot a witch and how to clear your towns of witches. So now we have little pockets all over England, and each of these small communities want to impress the king. So they start to wheedle out all of these strange, odd, underclass women. There were men as well, but women who didn't fit with King James's rules and regulations. And they labeled them witches because that suited what the king wanted. And they gathered them up and they took them to Lancaster Castle. And this is all in the documentary. We actually visit there and they put them on trial. And then we have quite a similar story to Salem because they link up eventually. But these women, young, old, poor, outsiders, were all labelled witches and rounded up, imprisoned and killed. And so Pendle being quite close to where I was brought up, I was told of the story of the Pendle witches.
Yes.
And of course, now it's just the Pendle women.
Yes, exactly. Because just to remind listeners, the people who were accused of being witches would not have thought of themselves that way. Most of them, maybe all of them, were not witches. And it's very important that we say this. And I know that there are a lot of people who like to say, oh, I'm a descendant of witches, and we are the granddaughters of the witches you cannot burn. And actually, your docuseries has a scholar who talks about how that's kind of a problematic phrase. Like, it's a lovely sentiment, but actually, these people were not witches. They were falsely accused. I thought the docuseries does a beautiful job also of telling us the truth of what actually happened without taking the magic away of the iconography of witches as these now modern feminist icons, which they certainly are. So from Pendle, Suranne, you go to all these other locations. You go to Bamberg in Germany, you go to London, you come to New York, you go to Salem. What did you set out to accomplish? Like in your own mind, when you and your team is making this show, what were some of your intentions or at least your questions when you started this project?
What I wanted to do was link up exactly what you've just said. The fact that we have the history of witches, the history of the witch trials, and then we have this resurgence in witchcraft. How did the two link? Because if the women who were on trial for witchcraft weren't witches, then why do we link the modern day witches? It's exactly what you said. I was so fascinated. I was like, but hang on, they weren't witches. So why are we talking about this resurgence?
Mm-hmm.
That was the overarching question. And what I found out is that actually, in the resurgence of witchcraft and this kind of like empowerment that we are seeing through feminism and having a voice and speaking your mind and being in your true self, stepping back into nature, we're reclaiming what those women didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a choice. They were repressed. So the very thing that the king feared is now rising up. And that I can really see a clear link to.
Yes.
I kind of got to that and I was like, right, okay, so we are almost fighting on behalf of, doesn't matter that they weren't witches, we're giving them a voice.
Yes.
And now we're not being silenced, we're rising up in today's society. And I really felt that that's the answer that I kind of came to the conclusion of. Making a documentary is so different to making drama.
Sure.
So we set out with a treatment of what we wanted, who we wanted to meet. And then we had to change our narrative because it was leading us and guiding us in a different way. So what was supposed to be a 10-day documentary turned out to be a year.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, the subject is too big.
Mm-hmm.
It's too vast. You go down all these warrens and you're like, oh, this links to something new. So much is not in the documentary, which I'm sad about, but obviously you have to find a narrative that you then follow so the audience can stay with you.
Sure.
But I wanted to know what it was within me that was trying to get out, because I'm really happy to call myself an actress. I'm really happy to say, well, this is what I do. I'm very happy to say that I do yoga and that I like alternative medicine. And there's so many things that I shout about that I do that aren't the norm, although they're much more becoming the norm these days.
Sure.
But an interest in witchcraft and witches and crystals or spells, manifestations, seemed like I wasn't ready to shout about that. And I wanted to know the answer to that too.
Beautiful. On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Nicole Markson. We howl at the moon, gnaw at the wounds of our human experience. To unfurl amongst a dangerous landscape means to endure the prick of a finger. Blood is drawn over and over and over again. But to live is to root into the wild garden of our very flawed and beautiful being. Thorns, the forthcoming album from Nicole Markson, releases August 9th. Available for pre-order at bandcamp.com/Nicole Markson. Witchwave listeners receive 20% off with code WitchWave20. That's bandcamp.com/NICOLEMARXEN for 20% off.
The Witch Wave is sponsored by BetterHelp. I cannot believe that we're already halfway through this year. It has gone by so quickly, but it's a really good time to stop and take stock of where we're at. Lately, I've been thinking about stuff that I'm proud that I've done in 2024. And also, I've been thinking about things that I still want to accomplish in the second half of this year. I'm really proud of all the writing I've been doing, and I'm so happy that I'm currently on track to finish my new book and hit the deadline that I've been given. Let me knock on wood. But it also means that I haven't been as on top of some of my self-care goals. I totally admit it. And so now is a really good time for me to, yes, celebrate my wins, but also recalibrate a bit and make adjustments for the rest of the year. Therapy can help each of us take stock of our progress and set achievable goals for the next 6 months. And as you all know, I'm a huge, huge proponent of therapy, and I cannot say enough good things about how going to various therapists at various points throughout my life has helped me internalize my successes, as well as come up with strategies to make future changes that I need to make to keep myself feeling well. Therapy provides us with an opportunity to pause and take a moment to consider not only where we've come from or where we're at, but also where we want to go from here and how we can get there. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Take a moment with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/witchwave today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, spelled HELP.com/witchwave.
You've heard me wax ecstatic about Snowy Owl Tea before, and so you will understand why I am so excited to announce that I have teamed up with them to create an exclusive Witchwave herbal tea blend just for you. Witchwave tea combines some of my favorite botanicals, including nettles, rosehip, lavender, elderflower, and vanilla. And there's also some butterfly pea flower in there, which means that if you squeeze some lemon into your tea after it's brewed, the color will change, just like magic. And of course, it comes in Snowy Owl's signature shiny holographic packaging with a brand new black cat and purple moon label, all of which makes me swoon. This Witchwave tea blend from me and Snowy Owl is now available in the Witchwave shop while supplies last. So head on over to witchwavepodcast.com/shop to order yours now. It's currently the only place where you can buy this tea blend. But don't forget to also check out Snowy Owl Tea's other delicious tea blends over on their website, snowyowltea.com, and you'll see why I fell in love with their handcrafted, scrumptious, full-leaf tea and blossom blends in the first place. Some of my favorites of theirs include Second Breakfast, which is a blend of lemon, poppy seed, and oat, and 11th Hour Black Tea, which has vanilla and cardamom. And best of all, Snowy Owl is offering 10% off any teas ordered from their site using code POTION. So head over to snowyowltea.com and use code POTION for 10% off their house blends. And if you want our new, exclusive, delicious, color-changing Witchwave herbal tea blend, you can order that now over at witchwavepodcast.com/shop.
Welcome back to the Witchwave. Today I'm speaking with Suranne Jones. So, Before we took our break, Suranne, you were saying that you kind of had ambivalent feelings about becoming more public with your curiosity about witchcraft. And I don't know how comfortable you feel sharing how much you may or may not have experimented with witchcraft prior to this docuseries, but you certainly do a lot of magic on camera. I think there are at least 3 different rituals or spells during the course of the series, which I absolutely loved. So, how did it feel to be making magic on camera? And do you care to share any of your dabblings before the docuseries?
My introduction to many things, I go back to my curiosity. So I have a well documented journey of my mental health, trying to figure that out. And I think that's to do with my early fame.
Mhm.
Both parents died. There's a lot of stuff going on kind of between 20 and 40. So I was very open to looking at my energy, looking at my aura, speaking to shamans, doing angel work. I've just been open. So
Yes.
what I learned with the rituals, and I met a pagan high priest actually as well that isn't in the, I met her in a wood and she had a broom and we did a good luck spell with rowan and red ribbon, the
Beautiful.
rowan tree ribbon.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And that was really special. So I took that with me. And actually, when we were going to Germany, the planes were grounded because of the snow. So everyone on the cruise said, "What do you think about your good luck charm now?" And I said, "I think it's worked brilliantly because I'm absolutely fucking exhausted. And I feel like I'm going to now go and have Christmas with my family and I'll be ready to rock when I come back."
Yes.
And that's how I saw it. And I think
Yes.
this is another thing that I've learned is they quickly said, "Well, the planes are grounded, so that's bad luck."
Mhm.
Whereas just by being cracked open
Mhm.
by my work in this documentary, I saw it a different way. And the same thing happens with Natasha Khan, Bat for Lashes, when she gives me a reading. And I
Yes.
immediately see the card and go, "Is that me? I'm the tyrant." Oh, the panic of the patriarchy comes
Yes.
up quickly. But I didn't film after that because she said, "You're exhausted." I felt like you needed to howl, which, by the way, I howl every morning now at work.
I love that. And you do a really good howl as part of the docuseries. Sorry, spoiler alert. You have a good cackle too, Saran, I have to say.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm hoping that someone will come knocking and give me a witch part at some point.
We need it. We need it.
Yes. And tomorrow morning, actually, because I'm working on a Netflix series, we're going to do a crew howl. So there'll be 20 of us. I'm going to film it. I'll send it to you, actually.
Yes.
Because everyone's been interested in what I've been doing with my makeup artist, who's really open in the morning, to move stuff within you by
Yes.
doing these howls.
Yeah.
And basically, that particular section is about the repression of female voices. Women are
Yes.
supposed to be quiet, not make too much noise. And I've really kind of got into this thing of, well, if I do it in the morning and I set my day up with this deep, deep movement within my soul, then that allows me to speak truthfully throughout the
Yes.
day.
Yes. Ah, gorgeous. I have to say, Saran, I didn't know Natasha was going to be in the docuseries. And she and I have become friends and she's been on the show. And I actually was the editor of that Oracle deck. The Mother Witch deck is so
You
beautiful.
were?
Yeah, so I helped her develop it. And I think of myself as like a midwife for that deck. Just it's her entire vision, but I got to
Yes.
help her. And she's such a magical person. And so when I saw that scene, first of all, I was like, yes, of course, Natasha's part of this. And when you flip over that card, I had such chills. And I'm so happy that you listened to the message of the card and that you really walked the walk and internalized that. Because as you say on screen, you were kind of burnt out. It felt like you were kind of carrying a heavier energy with you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what did it feel like to get that message from the card and to then embody it?
It felt like a relief. It felt like I'd been seen. And I cried. Just before Natasha came, I collapsed on the sofa because I was shooting something. I think it was Vigil at the time, and we'd had to do pickups for different reasons. And I'd just done a huge interview that day, the one-to-one camera stuff. And then Natasha came and I loved her energy. She was just beautiful,
Ah, she's the
calm,
best.
kind. And I felt so peaceful with her. And when she told me what that card meant, the next day, Lawrence, my husband, came up to talk to me and said, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, I'm not ready. I said, "I don't think I can do today," because it was another really important chat. And it was with Semra Harker, who is the Witch of Hackney Wick, who's on at
Yes.
the end, Mama Moon.
Yes. Yes.
I said, "I can't do it. And Semra will understand." And Semra did understand. And Channel 4 understood. And I just stepped down and I went and put my feet in the grass and I had some fun. And we went to France and I played with my son. And when I came back, I was ready to talk to Semra.
Yes, I love it. Oh, that's so wonderful. And it really pleases me to hear that you did listen to the message. You weren't just kind of faking it for camera, that you really internalized. And that comes through. And we should say the docuseries, you're talking to lots of scholars, you're talking to historians, people who are giving the historical context for these different witch trials and witchcraft movements and feminist movements and political movements. But you also then do meet with people who self-identify as witches across the spectrum, and you do this witchcraft with them. And I found it really moving to see, and you are a famously awarded, well-decorated actor, so it could have all been bullshit. But I felt like this real sincerity come through, that you really were opening yourself up to this magic. And I was really touched by it. So it thrills me to hear that you then got this reading from her and you listened to the message and you canceled a whole day of shooting. Like, that makes me really happy, Suranne. It really, really does. How did it feel to really let that magic work on you?
When you listen to yourself, and I think this is a really important message, you act on it. And then as humans, we then react to the fact that we have listened to ourselves, and then we doubt. And then you have to go through the doubt. And then I had to go through, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. All these people I've let down. Actually, let's call them back. Oh, I'm going to, and then once you let that go, you realize that was for the better.
Yeah.
And then when I did Sarah's interview, I did this other beautiful ritual, and we did something else, which I'll tell you about, which wasn't caught on camera because we did it privately. I knew that I would not have been able to go as deep with her if I'd have done it the next day.
Yes.
I think it's important just to note that any big decision and listening to oneself will bring doubt the very next moment.
Yes.
And you have to ride that too.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of doubt, and I don't want to get in your head too much, though you're a pro. We're speaking a few weeks before your docuseries is about to air. Are you having any doubts or anxieties about opening yourself up as, we'll call you witch adjacent or witch curious, to the public? How are you feeling about that at this stage?
I talked to Lawrence a lot about it. I think that since I made it, and like going into work, and I dance every morning before I get my makeup done. Then we have a howl. We have crystals around. I think I've incorporated it into my life a lot more since I made it. And so we made it last year. So I've had quite a while now of going, well, this is me. And I like doing these things because that helps me just as much as the yoga. I like to meditate. I like to dance and shake myself around because I need my energy shook up.
Yeah.
I feel like I have grown in confidence with what I need for me. I'm excited to introduce other people to things that they know nothing about, to the story of the witch trials, to places other than Pendle, or they might only know Salem. I didn't know about Bamberg myself. And then finally, I think if people can think of the word witch and not just think of a green face or someone who does something dark or someone who has negativity, I'll be really happy. And then if people think I'm a bit wacko, then that's their business, not mine.
Yes, that's right. That's absolutely right. On that note, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Crow Mother Channeling. So a lot of people ask about how they can learn more about witchcraft or deepen their witchcraft practice. And I'm here to tell you that Liza Fenster, otherwise known as Crow Mother Channeling, is offering a course that will help you do just that. This is called
Communion, and it is a virtual 4-month mentorship that will cover 4 seasons of magic in 4 months. Now, Liza is a prior Witchwave guest. She is also a beloved friend and coven member of mine, and I can't say enough good things about her. I've had sessions with her myself, and she is just so talented, smart, generous, and magical. So when you join Liza's 4-month mentorship, you will have access to lessons that are crafted from a secular perspective, which will help reconnect you to the supernatural and in turn experience a greater ferocity in your magical practice. Ooh! All lessons, 32 in total, are given from a trauma-informed, actively anti-racist and intersectional perspective. Among the many topics covered during this 4-month mentorship, you'll be learning about protection, ritual, planetary, and elemental magic for spring, summer, fall, and winter. You will also be taught allies and supportive bodily practices for each season. And at the end of each turn of the Earth's wheel, you'll be guided through vibrant, lustful, mellow, and restful transitions. These live virtual classes begin on July 14th. For more information and to register, visit lizafenster1.podia.com/communion. I'll spell that out. Liza, F as in fantastic, ENS as in sorcery, TER, the number 1, dot podia.com/communion. Once again, lizafenster1.podia.com/communion. Check it out. I am certain that this is going to be a most magical experience. This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you in part by Sphere and Sundry, an astro-magical atelier where you can get expertly elected materia magica, oils, incense, bath salts, salves, inks, beauty oils, and more, which have been ritually crafted during rare, powerful, and benefic astrological configurations. And oh my word, I can tell you firsthand, this is the stuff. These formulas are chosen in accord with the strict requirements of the talismanic tradition outlined in the Picatrix and other ancient grimoires, meaning you can benefit from the power of amazing astrological transits, even when the stars haven't aligned. These are incredible tools for witches who are looking to embrace the manifestations and results of their spell work, especially the Luna in Cancer series. And I myself have the Luna in Cancer incense, and it is a dream to use for any kind of lunar magic. Venus materia can be used for love, glamour, and attraction. Regulus for fame and recognition, Asclepius for healing and transformation, and Deneb al-Gedi for protection. I also used several of Sphere and Sundry's magical products on site in Greece during our group rituals, and they were so potent and so exquisite. I can't say enough good things about them. Since 2018, Sphere and Sundry have been a key driver in the rising tide of popularity and interest in astrological magic, amassing over 5,000 5-star reviews and field reports on their website. Most orders ship within 1 business day, and Sphere and Sundry is also well known for their incredible customer service, as they are their magical results, and I can attest to that as well. Learn more and get $10 off your first order at sphereandsundry.com using the code WITCHWAVE. That's sphereandsundry.com, ANDSUNDRY.com and use code WitchWave for $10 off your first order. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Maud's Paper Wing Gallery. The queer witches of Maud's Paper Wing Gallery would like to say Happy Pride Month to all the queer folks tuning in. Maud's queer witches are building a community of witchy and queer nerds where folks can be silly and soft together, step into their authentic selves, play with gender, heal from trauma, and be vulnerable with one another. They would love for you to join them. So if you're near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, stop in for Queer Coven or their monthly full moon parties at their haunted They Bar, Harold's Haunt. Or you can join their virtual community on Discord or Facebook. Need to stock up on Pride merch from a small queer-owned business as we head into June? Shop with Maud's Queer Witches at queerwitches.com. And you can get 13% off your first order with offer code WITCHWAVE. That's one word, WITCHWAVE, for 13% off your first order at queerwitches.com. They hope your summer is full of silly fun, rainbows, glitter, love, and support. Welcome back to The Witch Wave. Today I'm speaking with Suranne Jones. So Suranne, I said this to you off mic. I just want to say it on mic. Before I watch these docuseries about witches, and I'm sometimes in them as a talking head, as I was for you, I get nervous. I really do get nervous. I'm like, is this going to be sensationalized? Is it going to be cliche? Is it going to be unintelligent, foolish? You know, all the things. Just for the record, I think you and your team did such a magnificent job. I feel so proud to be part of it. And I just wanted to thank you for being so thoughtful, so open, so intelligent, and really covering all the different facets of witchcraft so beautifully. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. And, you know, I think about you every time I shake my broom. And I use my broom a lot.
It didn't make it in the cut that I saw, and that's okay. But for listeners, so they know what we're talking about, you and I made brooms together in Salem as part of our conversation. And I cherish my broom as well. It's actually right in the doorway of our house upstate. I love it.
Yeah, I can see mine now. It's in the bedroom. There's a little bell on mine, and it's good for clearing energy.
Yes.
So I do that all the time. It's like, where are you going with your broom? I'm like, I'm just doing this room. It's good for it.
I love that so much. That makes me so, so happy. So listen, I'd love to zoom out a little bit and talk about being an actor, because to my mind, that is a form of shape-shifting, to say the very least. You are embodying these different energies. You're becoming these different people. Does it feel that way to you? I know there's a lot of intellect and physical embodiment that goes into acting, but does any of it feel magical or spiritual to you as well at any point?
You know, I asked Ronald Hutton, who kind of helped guide me through the Pendle witch trials, and he's amazing.
The best. The OG. For listeners, if you want to read, I think, the best books about the history of witches, of paganism, Ronald Hutton is your guy. He was very helpful to me when I was writing my book too. Wonderful man.
Yeah, kind, and again, beautiful energy. And we talked a lot off camera, and when I was just asking my questions, and I said to him, what is magic? Does magic really exist? Can we really create spells? And he said, well, magic is, humans are susceptible to illusions. And then he actually said, you're magic because of your job.
Yes.
It was him that really made me think, yeah, you're right. Stories are magical. Passing down your knowledge, creating images, creating a life, creating characters that you can see yourself in, stories that get so deep inside people that they can truly understand, almost like a therapy, and bringing things out so people can let go of things. That's my job. And if I'm embodying a real person or I have to research, I feel like I genuinely take their story and their words and their experience and pop it inside myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go, okay, what's next? And then I'll go somewhere and I'll be in a space and I'll take the energy from the space and I'll go, right, pop that in because I'm going to need that at some point. I don't know where or how, but I will. And then when I come to do my job, I feel like they have their own life within me
Yes.
and they use me like I use them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you really feel it and go, oh God, oh, that was something. I don't know what. And sometimes you can't always see it on screen, but you know it happened. And I feel like some say, let's take Gentleman Jack, which touched people's lives so
Yeah.
much and made a community. People met and married, and they go to Anne Lister's place, and a blue plaque appeared. And there was a university named after Anne Lister, and then they found Anne Walker's grave and her diaries, and all of a sudden, all this stuff's unearthed because we told the story.
Yes. You resurrected her in a way.
That's magic.
Yeah, absolutely. And you became her. I'm so happy you brought her up. Of course, she's top of my list of roles to ask you about because when I watch you in that role, ooh, the swagger and the smolder and the confidence, Suranne. And I just wonder if playing a character like that lingers. Do you feel more confident? Do you carry yourself differently after letting a soul like that embody you? Or do you just have to like really compartmentalize that or just let it go forever? How do they live in you afterwards?
Sometimes I see me as Anne Lister and I go, oh, wow, that's what other people were seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're very special characters like that. And they don't come along all the time. They don't find you or you don't find them. I'm doing a role now that I absolutely love and I feel very attached to her. And it doesn't always happen like that. And I think with Anne Lister, she was so big that I had to let her in. And then the clothes, she was sexy and her politics were questionable to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So she wasn't always likable. But yet there was something that was so alive about her. And I just knew instinctively what to do. And I also think that's magic because I wasn't trying to find it. It happened.
Yeah, that actually makes me think, are the characters that you've usually played fictional or do you often play people who are historical figures? Because to me, I feel like maybe there's a difference, and I'm talking purely from a witch standpoint, between inventing a character whole cloth versus trying to honor the spirit of someone who really lived and embody them somehow, whether we're talking literally or spiritually. Have you played many other historical figures? And do you feel a difference versus when you're doing one versus fictionalized acting?
Definitely a difference, especially with Anne Lister because we had her words, we had her diaries too. So I felt that was so special because I was being guided with her own words. And I'm now developing two other characters that are real. One woman is still alive and I'm getting to talk to her. She's in her 90s. And I feel like whenever I'm with her, I'm getting her spirit and watching her and I'm feeding from her and all her stories. And I can see that our souls are meeting. So it's different. And then we have another one in development who was this wild, fun, eccentric woman that I'm just delving into that I'm like, wow, I can't wait to play you.
Ooh.
But then I'm also working with this brilliant writer called Anne-Marie O'Connor who wrote Maryland. And we created those characters from scratch. And that feels amazing too, because you are dragging them from your soul.
Yes.
And you don't know why they're here.
Yeah.
But they're here. And obviously with Maryland, the themes are loss and Alzheimer's and family dynamics. And I needed to tell that story.
Yeah.
It wasn't a question of, do I do this or not? It was like, no, now's the time. Let's do it.
Yes.
And then with my mental health journey, I made a show called I Am Victoria because I felt like I wanted to share my story with people, but I wasn't comfortable enough to talk about the detail. So I put it on screen in the character instead.
Magnificent. Magnificent. I have to guess that you're now in a position where you can mostly pick and choose what you want to do. And I know you've earned that after many, many years of hard work. How do you decide what projects you want to take on? I have to imagine there's some intuition or some feeling maybe you get in your body. How are you making these decisions?
Everyone's different, but I know by the first couple of pages, I might love the script, but I might not want to play the character. So it's a different thing. I might write back to the writer and say, I really, really loved this. I think it's going to be brilliant. And I genuinely mean it. But I just know it's not me that's the right person to do it. I think they choose you. I think if it's a script that comes to you, they speak to you in a way, and you're already in it. If you imagine yourself jumping into a fairy tale book, that's what happens with a good script. You're in it and you're already acting it as you're reading it. And then I start to see the clothes I'm wearing, and images come to you, and then the hair appears, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is already happening. So I'm just going
Yes.
to go with it. So
Yes.
there's that. And then there's the other stuff where I imagine the kind of person that I want to portray, or a story I want to convey or share. And I do a lot of lying in bed, asking the universe what's next
Mm-hmm.
too,
Mm-hmm.
which is important.
Do you ever get signs or synchronicities that help you sort of make those decisions?
We manifested Stockard Channing
Ooh.
into one of our shows because we just said that's who this character is when we were writing
Yeah.
it. And she ended up doing the part. So I think that you can bring things into your life, but you have to be really open to, if you say, right, what's next? And then you get a feeling. And then you maybe say, oh, I feel like this should be next. But it doesn't mean that it will be the next thing you do.
Sure.
It's just that the next thing you do might be a step to the thing that you're asking the universe for.
That's right.
And it's all about, well, you're not asking the universe for something, you're asking to work with it
Mm-hmm. Collaborating.
and create
Yes.
with it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly my experience too. Now, am I correct that the Stockard Channing project that you're talking about is the same project that you had a dream about?
Yeah.
I would pronounce it Maryland, but Maryland is how you're pronouncing it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And that did come to you in a dream. Am I right?
Yeah. When I was getting serious about developing stuff, I had a dream about two sisters that found a house. And when they went into the house, there was a funeral, and they were talking about this woman that they didn't know, but yet they saw these pictures on the wall of their mother. And then they suddenly discovered that their mother had a different life, another life they didn't know about. And the way that she was being talked about was not their experience of her. And that was it. That was my dream. And I wrote it down, and it didn't do anything with it for about 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept coming back to it
Yes.
because it kept,
Tapping you on the shoulder.
yeah. And then it needed to be developed, and it needed Anne Marie to come and give her skills to it, because I just knew that that was something. And then she developed it, and then we worked together and made it. And that was our very first drama production. Docuseries is our first documentary, and Maryland was our first drama.
How fabulous. Now, are you feeling as you're developing these different projects that you are, I don't know, growing in the word power is coming to me, but that confidence, that energy, because it takes a lot of guts and it takes a lot of faith to step into that role as, more of an executive. How is that feeling for you, just in terms of your own personal growth, I suppose?
My beautiful makeup artist said to me today, you don't give yourself enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me cry. And we've spent a lot of time just hugging each other a lot on this job, because I'm executing this job and I'm in it, and I'm working really closely with the writer, and I'm making sure that everyone's okay, and whilst loving the job. So I often think, like, and I'm playing a prime minister at the moment as well. So the role is quite a big authority figure as well, with a lot of responsibility. Sometimes I feel like a little girl who is playing at being a producer of shows, playing at being a character.
Yeah.
And the work that I've done around that is called part work.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all made up of different parts. And sometimes one part steps forward to run the show.
Yes.
So whenever I feel like that, my little girl is stepping forward, and she's saying she probably needs me to put my arms around her. Maybe she's tired, she needs a break, I need a break. Or my clipboard woman will come out.
Ooh.
And she'll snap to, or my teenager with a fag telling everyone to fuck
Yep.
off. They step forward and run the show sometimes. And it just means that you need to recalibrate and get everybody back and say, it's okay, we're doing okay. The adult me is taking care of
Mm-hmm.
this. And that goes back to taking care of yourself. So I feel good on a whole, but as long as I take care of me, I am then able to step forward and be in my power.
I love that so much. Now, you alluded before to a spell that you did off camera. And my intuition is telling me to ask you about that now. Does that spell that you did at all relate to what you're talking about right now? Or am I off base?
We set up the circle, and there was a lot of foxes outside Semra's place as
Okay,
well.
wait, Suranne. I just made eye contact with Josh, our amazing studio engineer here who owns the studio, because foxes keep coming up on the show. And Josh and I just had a whole fox conversation. So that's an amazing synchronicity. But please keep going.
Ah, yeah, there was one just right outside, and then when we opened the door after the spell, there was two.
Ugh,
She was like, "Oh, they hang around here all the time." But for me, it felt magical. But she gets them as visitors all the time. They were just stood very proud on top of the bins outside where she was. So we made our circle, and then we were asking if anyone wanted to come forward to help me on my journey with the documentary.
mhm.
So I was like, oh, okay. And she was asking what was coming up for me. And I couldn't see anything at first because I didn't know what I was looking for. There was just kind of like red around me. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm, maybe there's a wave. It felt like maybe there was like a billowing,
Mhm.
and that was it.
Mhm.
And then I suddenly saw like an M&M character,
Huh.
but a heart with little legs and thumbs. Not that I saw. So, how do we explain to any of your listeners that a vision isn't a vision?
Sure.
It's almost like a feeling.
Yes.
How would you explain it?
Honestly, I think you just did a perfect job. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of sensing it in your mind's eye.
Yes.
You're not literally
Yeah.
seeing it in front of you. It's not a hallucination, but it feels like an image that comes to you from someplace else.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why we didn't kind of do it on camera or speak about it on camera, because we might not have had time to explain
Yes.
this either. And it was very personal to me. And we certainly didn't want anything within the documentary. We don't want people to hear me a soundbite of that and go, oh, I think she's bonkers.
Right.
So it takes time to explain, which is this is a perfect place to give it time to explain. So this image of this M&M with little legs in a heart and his thumbs up at me was really like, oh, and I felt, oh, you're saying I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Like it's myself talking to myself. And that was the image that came to me of saying you're doing the right thing. You're safe.
Yep.
You're good. This is all fine. Not to worry. And then I felt an image come to me of women dancing around a fire.
Mm.
And then I saw my mum walk towards me. Then we finished the spell, and then we kind of came out of it and we cleared the circle and we did the other thing on
Yeah.
camera, which was the warm-ups.
Yes.
But I never experienced anything like that before. And it was so bizarre
Yeah.
and beautiful. It didn't make sense completely at first. I felt like the women dancing around the fire was certainly connected to Pendle.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the image of my mum walking towards me was connected to the billowing
Yeah.
because she's
Yeah.
passed.
Mm. Oh, well, and we'll
Amazing.
have to find out what the heart-shaped M&M. I mean, I know you're saying this might just be an encouraging sort of image that came to you. I'll be very curious to see if you encounter that image in the real world at some point. So let's just keep ourselves open to the possibility that that vision might not have fully played out yet for you in terms of its final meaning.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Let's talk a little bit about manifesting. What else would you like to manifest for yourself cinematically, theatrically, as an actor? I know you've done lots of stage. Are there certain roles that you are hoping to manifest for yourself or certain projects? Because here's the place to speak it into existence, Saran. Let's do it.
Yeah. So we've got two projects that we're working on after this one, and we have green lights for them. We're very excited about that. I feel like we loved them into
Mm-hmm.
existence because we were like, this is really important to us. We've got a great team, and the team was so passionate about them. So everyone that joined the team helped the manifestation. I would love to do this show that the woman that I was just talking about, I would love that to happen
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like it's a special story. We have a good connection, and I feel like it would mean a lot
Mm-hmm.
to women. I feel like it's a story that would connect a lot of women as well. I'd love to do a musical. I say it a lot, but I would love to do
Do
a
you
musical.
sing, Suranne?
I do. Yeah, I
Of
love
course she
singing.
does.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I love it.
Amazing.
We're coming to New York and I'm going to take my little boy to see Wicked.
Oh,
I need
perfect.
to book that in. Yeah, there's just so many things that I feel like we have in the pot that I want to put out there, but that one and the musical would be
How
amazing.
fabulous.
I'm playing a witch, of course.
Obviously, I was going to say, okay, I have one more question for you, Suranne. I know that you have been decorated and awarded and lauded, but you got the biggest award that I can possibly imagine, which is you got to be a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race UK. I mean, stop it right now. So I'm a
Stop
huge,
it.
huge Drag Race person. Actually, tonight I'm seeing Jinx Monsoon perform. She's a friend of mine and she's in Little Shop right now.
Yes.
Yeah, friend of the show. She's been on a bunch of times. She's a witch, as you probably know.
Yes. Yeah, just been in Doctor Who.
Yes, you're both Doctor Who alums. There you go.
Yes.
So what was it like being in RuPaul's goddess-like presence? What was it like being a judge? Just whatever you care to share. Please indulge me.
Have you had Michelle Visage on here?
No. I'd love to.
Oh, God. Oh, I bet that would be a great conversation. I'd love to hear the two of you hook up. I'd actually gone into Michelle's inbox and said, can I please be on Love You? Can I please be on Drag Race?
Yes.
And then I was on Graham Norton.
Yes.
And I said to him, can I please be on Drag Race? Like, I actively.
You were campaigning. Yes.
Yeah.
Manifesting your ass off.
Yeah.
Love it.
I saw myself like sat on that panel. And then they said, yeah, you can. Graham made a call and they said, yeah, come along. I loved every minute of it because drag, watching the artistry and the love and the daring and the courage and the fun.
The magic.
The magic of the transformations.
Yes.
And the magic of what that allowing yourself to be in touch with whatever is inside you come out. And I used drag I did a Christmas film 2 years ago and a little bit for Gentleman Jack. I used drag as in within my own art because sometimes I feel like characters can be a drag persona of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work for all of them, certainly not the more naturalistic ones. But for A Christmas Carol, I definitely saw the bob and the clothes and the walk, and she was drag.
Yes.
And I love it so much. And yeah, the heart of drag is so beautiful and painful and wonderful and everything mixed up in. It's very human, and I just adore it. Adore
How wonderful. BAFTA schmafta, you got to be on RuPaul's Drag Race. There we go. How fabulous. Well, listen, Suranne, you have been just such a jewel to get to work with and to speak with today. I am in awe of your talent and your artistry, and I'm so grateful that the story of witchcraft is in your very, very careful, considered hands. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and congratulations on all of your success, and may all of your best manifestations come true.
Well, I loved you when I met you and made our brooms, and I love you now, and I'll see you in New York.
I can't wait. Thanks, Suranne. Mwah!
Bye.
That's it for the show. Thank you again to Suranne Jones for sharing her searching and spectacular self with me. I hope you all have a wonderful summer, and I'll see you back here in the fall for season 8. Or if you join patreon.com/witchwave, you'll be hearing from me throughout the summer. Do you have questions, feedback, need some witchly advice, or just want to share something magical that happened to you recently? Please do drop us an email or a voice memo at witchwavepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you just might make it on the Witchwire. The Witch Wave is a Phantasmophile production written and produced by me, Pam Grossman. This episode was recorded and edited by Josh Wilcox and/or Walter Nordquist and myself. Our theme music is the song Hand and I by Lycanthia. Our new Witchwave logo was designed by Thunderwing,
And special thanks, as always, go to Matt Freeman, Laura Antal, and Cece Pascal. You can check out information about this and other episodes on our website and now buy Witchwave merch over at witchwavepodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, and do consider giving us lots and lots of sparkly stars and glowing reviews. It really, truly does make a difference and helps other people find the show. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at WitchWavePod, and you can check out my witch emoji for iPhone by going to witchemoji.com or downloading it in the App Store. My book, Waking the Witch, is available everywhere now, and the Witchcraft book I edited and co-authored for Taschen is as well, so thank you for checking those out too. And if you want more Witchwave, or you would just like to support the show, please do join us over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/witchwave. Thank you so much for listening. Witches are the future. I'll catch you next time on The Witch Wave.